Okay, welcome to the next lesson, and in this lesson we're going to create the layered rock shapes in here. And before that, let's look at some of the references that we got, and particularly this one. You see these layered rock effects that you see here, and unlike this one which we had rectangles in this direction, I mean having the bigger length in vertical direction, these ones we're going to make them horizontal, because you see here, if we make them horizontal we can make the best out of them. And we're going to make these layered, for example, just like rocks that you see in here. There are a lot of layered rocks in coastal areas, and these are some references that we can take advantage from. And of course, sometimes like these ones, and these are pretty common in these types of weather, and we're going to create that. So let's hide all of these and go and start with the bigger ones. So we have this one again, we have Blender open in background, and we have the GoZ and things like that available to us. So let's bring all of them so that I can see in which direction I'm dragging this one to. So let's make the brush size bigger, and since I didn't store the configs from the last session, this draw needs to be adjusted as well for now, because I want to make the draw size so bigger to be able to move this one freely without any problem, really. So let's take this and bring the move brush so that I'm able to manipulate and move this in any direction that I want to. So I want to make it rectangle. And of course, since we do not really have a lot of vertices, it's really easier for me to manipulate that using only 8 vertices. So this one is a good shape for it, but I believe I can drag this one also out to make it more rectangulish. Oh, and drag this one down. Okay, now we're ready to dynamesh this. I'm going to dynamesh on the lowest possible resolution. Okay, and since the poly count is so high, we are getting so much polygon since the object is bigger. So let me have this one only, and let me see if I can go lower, since having lesser polygons will result a lot in an easier UV time. So let's turn this one all the way down and hit the blur off and hit dynamesh. Okay, looks like this is the least that we can go. So let's go with this, and now I'm going to hit some of the edges to shrink the size a bit, and then after that we're going to dynamesh again to get lower poly count as well. So let's go and start to hit these edges, and I'm not going to drag alpha in here because I want to make it as smooth as possible, and not this smooth but something like that. Okay, let's sculpt on all of the edges so that we do not have any obvious hard edges in here. So let's hit this one as well, and try not to push your pen too hard. We really do not want to make this so strong. Okay, and this one as well. And there's a couple of things you can do to make this smooth. You can either hold down shift and smooth it, or you can use this polish button to smooth this one out. And if you press this button, you're getting a smoother a lot more aggressively. So this one is alright. We have some edges but not that hard. And if we hold down shift and click, we're getting something fluffy, which I really do not like. Okay, now let's bring out the alphas, and I'm going to use some layered alphas for this one. So let me drag the rock alpha. Of course you can go and use these free alphas or the 50 PST rock alphas, which I gave you the link to, but I'm going to use these ones. So before adding these, let me again dynamesh. Okay, so that we have least amount of resolution. Okay, now the polygon distribution is alright as well, and we need to upres this one using Control and D. Okay, 5 million polygons is enough, and turn off the Dynamesh as well. And I'm using these layered cliffs, and make sure that the back face masking is on, and I start to drag the effect. Okay, this one is good, but I need to make this a bit stronger. So if I drag this so much, we are getting something like this, which is not really desired. So somehow it's good, but to some extent not. Okay, just let's be directional on this. And we want to put directionality to every place that we see on these. And I want to make sure that all of them are following the same direction. Okay, this one on this one as well. Let's place it here. And on this part also, we need to make it happen. And make sure that all of them are stitching together. Okay, simply we created a rock that is pleasing to look at. Okay, on this part as well, let's be directional and not go too overboard with it. Okay, on this part as well, and on this one where it's remaining, let me go in another direction. Okay, now looks like we have done something wrong. Let's make it not so strong. Let's go for 30 instead of 40. And let's try to drag. Okay, now we have something a lot better. Just try to paste some alpha in here. Okay, now let's look at all of the directions. And looks like I need to really go back before adding any of them, because this was too strong and I were getting some undesired effects. Okay, this one is alright. Now let's paint the effects more. Now let's make them to the same direction. Okay, just like this one, and on this part as well. Let's go to this direction. Okay, now we need to follow the same direction all the way to this side as well. The effect is a lot more subtler, but we are not really getting that much errors. Let's go for here as well. Okay, on all of the parts it's looking alright, and we need to apply the effect in here as well. Okay, and just one more side. Okay, on all of the sides we have now applied the effect, but we need to tackle these areas as well. And these are smaller areas, it's really fluffy, and I really do not want that. Okay, this one is looking alright, and let's pick up this another layered rock and try to paste on some parts to take that fluffy look really go away. And we're pasting a smalls. Okay, let's look from outside, and this is looking alright, especially if we start to kit bash this, we are getting perfect results with it. So let's apply on this one as well, and make sure that you're not getting edges like this in your results. It's not so natural. And one of the downsides of smoothing too much is that on some places you are getting fluffy results, which is really not desirable. Just try to paint alpha on the places to make that fluffy effect go away. And on this part as well, just be so small. Really do not want to go so radical on these parts. Okay, now it's looking a lot better, and we can take this, make it visible, and go a couple of steps back to the lowest subdivision level. Okay, we have this one, and we can also start to UV this one out. So let's go to Go Z and go for visible. Okay, now let's come into here. Of course, we need to hit import so that it imports that for us. And you see that has disappeared and came in here, which is really what we wanted. So let's take this one, isolate it, and start to create a UV for it. And of course, since this one is so fluffy, the UV creation is going to be simple because there is not a lot of curvature to guess. We only need to put some lines just to make the UV, and we're not going to be so careful. Okay, let's go for this and try to pick the shortest path to the places that you might see fit. And let's come into here and to here, make seam, and from here all the way to here, make this one seam as well. And since this one is a curvature, let's start to pick up right away to here. Okay, now on this part, let's connect them so that we get a closed seam. And now from here, let's select all the way to here using that curvature. And we need to select the bottom curvature as well, and all the way to here because it's not going to be seen anyway. Okay, and from here all the way to here. Okay, selected a good thing, and now let's mark it seam. Okay, now we have closed the seams, and now let's select linked, and looks like there's an open gap in here. Okay, and it's this one, mark seam, and now select this. Okay, the seams are now closed. Okay, unwrap, unwrap, select this one also, unwrap. And the moment that this polygon disappears, we know that the unwrapping has been done completely. Okay, and I believe there's just one more remaining. Unwrap. Okay, now we're done. And now let's go to UV Packer 1. Okay, rescale the UVs, and we got something like this, which is not really desired. So let's take them, and I should make sure that I select all of them and rotate. Let's rotate so that all of them are facing the same direction, and disable the rotation. Let's go a step back, and now let's hit it. No, we got worse. And we need to rotate it to preserve some of the UVs. Let's go in this direction and try to rotate. Okay, looks like this is the best that it can go. Of course, we're going to export to 4K for this so that we have good resolution. and we're going to do some shader just like the normal map and things to make that high resolution inside Unreal Engine. So let's take this one, save the Blender file, and of course save the ZBrush as well. And now let's go to Blender and hit export, selecting this only. Okay, now ZBrush is going to take a bit of time to rotate and import that. Okay, looks like it got imported. Let's hit Shift and F to go to the wireframe, and this is the UVs that we got. Okay, it's fine, and now we're ready to move to the next one. But before that, let's take this one and hit D to go to the highest subdivision level to get most of the details back. Okay, this is what we got here, and now we need to do some more clips in here. So let's take this one and hide everything else, just this one. Now I'm going to bring the BMV, that's the move brush, and let's make this one also a rectangular piece. And let's hit Dynamesh on the lowest resolution. Okay, it's fine. And now let's compare it against others. Okay, it's alright. So let's take this one and let's make it a smooth already using this polish. No, this is too smooth. Let's first hit some of the edges using trim smooth border. Just try to hit these edges. No, not this too strong. Let's just make it a bit more smoother. I just want something that is rectangular and having so many sides. Okay, and let's smooth this one using shift instead of using polish. Okay, now we got it, and now let's hit Dynamesh and deactivate the Dynamesh. And again, I'm going to pick up the layer and I start to apply it on here. But of course, before that, we need to give it enough resolution. Okay, this is enough for it. And now we can apply the resolution totally. Let's make it a bit stronger. Okay, and make this one the reversed and try to do the alpha in these areas as well. Just try to make it directional. And on the areas where it's fluffy, just try to paint a small one. And try to paint the alpha in here as well. Just you need to be directional and you're good to go. Okay, now on this part, and if you have an area like this, just try to paint a small alpha. It really doesn't matter. And on the smaller areas like this, just paint a small. And depending on the size of the mesh, really, you really want to choose to go small or big. Okay, this is good, and I feel like here we have some meshes need to be fixed. Okay, just hold down the shift and go back and paint some alpha on top of it. Okay, these ones may be a bit problematic when it comes to normal map baking, and just try to hold down shift to hold you out from a lot of headaches that might occur later on. Okay, just look at the mesh, and everywhere that you felt that there's something wrong, just paste alpha on there. Okay, and now let's compare that against this one. And of course, this one is in its lowest level. Let's go. Okay, and we're comparing them one by one, and they make perfect sync. For example, for these fluffy areas, we might use this one to cover the part. But now that I'm looking at this, we're really done with creating the rocks, because this is going to be cliff, and these ones are not really useful. And we can use a good thing only using these. Okay, let's take this, delete it, and also the next ones also I'm going to delete. Okay, we have now 8 pieces, which is enough for creating enough variation. Of course, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces, and these ones are attached to each other. Let me go and split to parts so that it detaches them from each other, and now it's separated. And a good thing is that it keeps the UVs and the subdivision level that we created for that. See, this is the subdivision level. Let's go a couple of steps down. You see, we're only going down on this. So let's go wireframe, and now the UVs are in place as well, and this is good about it. So let's go all the way up, and now we need to export these meshes. But before that, there's one more, which is this one, which needs to be UV'd as well. So let's take care of the UVs of this one. Go to the lowest subdivision level, and you see it doesn't have any UVs, so it goes visible. Let's make it visible, and now we need to go to Blender. Okay, this is what we're getting. This is it. Okay, let's create a UV for it, and now we need to make the UV seams. Okay, let's go for here and just try to follow the curvature as roughly as you can. Really do not go so much, because as I said, this is going to be buried under a lot of geometry. Okay, just go until here, and it did a perfect job. And I'm going to come to here as well, and all the way top to here, and make it see. Okay, and on this one also come down to this section and mark this one as seam as well. Okay, and now this one is so fluffy and the curvature is alright. So this one, only try to hit control to pick the shortest path to there. Okay, and now from here all the way to here. Okay, and I believe we are done with seam creation. No, let's create the seam for this one as well. Okay, now we are done. Let's make unwrap on this one. Now let's select it and unwrap. I hit pin wrongly, so let's select this one as well. We need to place a seam in here. Okay, let's select the part and select the seam part and unwrap it, and it's going to detach that from that. Okay, now let's go for this. We have it, and we have unwrapped this one, and all of the pieces have been unwrapped perfectly. So let's hit unpack, and it gave us a good result. Let's make this one rotated and disable the rotate. No, that one was better. Okay, this one is a lot better, but we are getting this UV on another direction. We want all of them to face the same direction. Okay, let's looks like this is the best that it can do, and we are getting a lot of the UV space wasted. So we have to select really. Let's go for something like this. Okay, and now let's hit export and go to ZBrush. It's gonna take a bit. Okay, and it tells that it's alright, and now we can also separate it by UV, and it's alright. Okay, and now let's hit D to go to the highest subdivision level, which is this one. Okay, now the creation process is done. We have these rocks, and we have also the beach kit to take care of. And from now on, I'm going to create a new save from this, and I'm going to call it decimated, so that I have those as backup. And I have this one so that I can decimate it and import the high poly and low poly to Blender to bake them inside Substance. Of course, the same kit goes for the beach kit as well. When we were done with this, we will deal with the beach kit as well. So the first thing that I'm going to do is going into this, and I'm going to disable the geometry, disable this subdivision level. So I'm going to hit delete lower, and it's going to delete every lower subdivision level that it had. And now we are left with this. But of course also the UVs are intact, and we can taste that as well. So let's grab a copy from this. Let's duplicate it. So it crashed and I had to bring the file back again. So doesn't matter. Let's go and hit duplicate. And now we have one copy of this file and one copy again. We're going to make one of them the high poly and one of them the low poly. Of course, the low poly in the nanite standards. We're not going to make this one something like 1,000 polygons. We're going to create million polygons, but that is one. It's supposed to be as low poly. So let's take this one and go into decimation master and try to hit pre-process current so that it's going to calculate the vertices to see what it can do about it. Okay, now it's analyzing the mesh. So before that, let's activate the keep UVs as well. So let's hit pre-process current, and it's going to analyze the mesh. And since it's pretty heavy, it's going to take a bit of time. And now it's processing, but since this one is so heavy, it may take a bit of time. Okay, now the operation completed in 2 minutes. Now I'm going to hit decimate current and keeping the UVs available. So now we're getting a 1 million piece. Okay, I might keep this one for the low poly, or I can even go lower. So let's take this one as a low poly and keep that one as high poly. And this one activated and this one activated as well. I'm going to select the low poly and go to the project in here and hit project all so that it's going to project all of the high poly details onto the low poly. And again, since this one is so heavy, it's going to take a bit, but in the end the result is going to be worth it, and we're going to get exactly what we had on the high poly and project it on the low poly. Okay, done now. And now if I exit out of that and really zoom so far on the mesh, you see activating or deactivating one really doesn't matter. Of course, we have this smoothing issue which we need to fix in Blender, but the result is going to be consistent. So let's take this one This one is the low poly and this one is the high poly. And later on, if I encountered any problem in Blender, I'm going to make this one high poly and create a lower version as well from that. The first scenario is that I'm going to keep this 5 million polygons. Of course, when we try to import this into Blender, we are getting 10 millions. So the first scenario is that I'm going to keep this as high poly and keep this one as low poly. But if that didn't work, I'm going to keep this 1 million piece as high poly and create another one as the low poly. So now that we have decimated this piece, let's go and hit other groups with UV. And now you understand that the UVs are in place as well. And now you see that based on the UV clusters that we created, we're getting different colors on every cluster. So let's hit Control and Z to go back another step because I do not want auto grouping on them. So let's take this one and we have this piece. It's 6 million polygons. We really do not want a lot of polygons on this. So let's take it and let's see if I can go another subdivision back and compare them before and after. Let's go up. Okay, I'm taking this and deleting the lower, and of course save it. So for this one, I'm going to make it a copy. So let me do that for this one as well. This one, I believe so much geometry isn't so necessary on this. I'm taking this one, let's hit pre-process, and now instead of taking it to 20%, I'm going for something like 50%, so that we get a bit of optimization in the file size as well. So again, it's going to take something like 2 minutes, but for the results, I'm going to set it to 50% because I know I'm going to get a lot of errors inside Blender because now we have 26 points in here, which equals something like 50 million polygons inside Blender, which is a chaos, and we might take a lot of crashes. So I'm going to save myself a bit of trouble. So operation completed, and now I'm going to set the percent to 50 and now hit decimate. Of course, looks like the operation was not completed. Let's hit pre-process again. Sometimes it happens in middle of pre-process, it breaks. That's just a random bug and happens sometime. Okay, operation completed, and now on 50%, let's hit decimate. And now it shrinked it to something like 3 million polygons. And I know that I'm going to get double the amount in Blender. So let's go for the next one, which is this. And I need to first convert it to 20% for high poly because this is relatively a small piece and I really do not want a lot of polygons on that. So let's hit keep UVs and pre-process currents and just wait a bit so that it calculates the mesh. So operation done, and I'm going to decimate it so that I get the low poly as that. So I'm going to keep this one as the high poly because, as I said, this is relatively a small piece, and I'm going to keep 1 million polygon for this, and I'm not going to keep as equal as that for this a small piece. So I'm going to take this and keep this one as the high poly and duplicate it. And on this one, I'm going to keep the UVs pre-process, okay, and make this one the low poly. Okay, we've got 250,000 polygons on this, which is all right, and the high poly is there as well. So let's go for the next piece, which is this one, and that's obvious that I'm not going to keep so much polygon for this. So let's hit pre-process and decimate it. Okay, this one I'm going to keep this as the high poly and duplicate it and pre-process again, and I'm going to decimate this one to get the low poly as well. So Let's hit pre-process. And this is the low poly with good amount of polygon, because using a million polygon for this would be a waste of resources. So let's go for this one. And looks like this one needs to be decimated down as well. Just make sure that you have the keep UVs whenever you want to decimate these. So done. And now hit decimate. And I'm going to keep this as the high poly and duplicate it and decimate this one to 20% as well to take this one as a low poly. Okay, this one done as well. And now we have left only this part from this kit and only two cliffs. So let's hide this, and I'm going to pre-process again. And this is basically what we're going to do. We pre-process, decimate them, and create high poly and low poly out of them. Because as I said, Nanite really doesn't have any problems with high polygon, but Blender has. And I'm going to use Blender for assigning materials to these, check the UVs and things like that. So I'm not going to have any problems in Blender, because it tends to crash a lot with high amount of geometry. So operation done and decimated. Okay, this one is alright, and hit duplicate, and I'm going to decimate this one down to 20% as well to act as a low poly. Okay, this one is done as well, and now we have these two major pieces. One is this huge cliff, and one is this one. Okay, let's do them. And the amount of polygon that we are getting is all right here. So let's hit pre-process, and before that you can save, because we're going to do a major change and it might really break something off. So, and let's delete lower. Okay, and now let's hit pre-process with the keep UVs activated. Okay, I'm going to decimate it to 20% so that I can use this as the high poly, and let me duplicate it. Okay, and on this one again I'm going to go down to 20% as well. Okay, and decimate, and I can use this piece for the low poly as well. So we have now this one, and then we are ready to go for the beach kit as well. So let's take this one, and looks like already we have a bit of problem on these. Let me smooth them out. Okay, gone. And some areas which need a bit of fixing. Okay, there are some minor changes and it's not really noticeable. So again, this one is 20 million polygons. It's very much for this. So keep the UVs. I'm going to decimate this to 20% for the high poly, and then copy that, and again another 20% for the low poly as well. Okay, now decimate this one, and this is good for high poly, and duplicate it again, and I'm going to decimate this to 20% as well. Okay, now decimate, and this is good for this one as well. So we need to do some things. I need to select all of them so that all of them become visible. And now we have 14 pieces here, and each one has a couple of pieces, one low poly and one high poly, which are standing on another. And if I select this one, this is two meshes. So I'm going to select all of them and export this as FBX into Blender so that I can do the texturing inside Substance. But before that, I need to export this into Blender and give them material. Okay, let's hit export, and I'm going to name this rock kit and export it as FBX. Okay, I'm exporting all of them binary, and I can use triangulation. Okay, everything is alright. Now I'm going to export all of them into a single file. So the file exported, and I have it here, and now it's time we go and take care of the beach kit as well. So we have it here, And now we start to decimate that. But there's one thing that we need to take care, and that is that we didn't really create the UVs for this kit. So we're going to create the low poly UV for these. But the UV creation isn't so a problem. On these bigger pieces, we need to shrink down the UV into 0 to 1 UV space because all of them are flat planes and the default UV is there. But for these rocks, we need to create some simple UVs. Just some simple UVs so that it can hold out. So let's go and start the creation process. Of course, and now you see I created another file. And let's come in here. And in the geometry section, I need to delete the lower and duplicate it. And before duplication, I also want to hide all of them. I just need to make this one decimated because this one is so high poly, even for the high poly. I'm going to decimate this and using the keep UVs, decimate this to 20% to act as a low poly, and then I take that 20% and decimate 20% again to be our low poly. So let's decimate. Okay, now this is enough, and I'm going to duplicate this and do a pre-process, and using keep UVs I'm going to decimate this one as well so that later on the UVing process is a lot easier inside Substance and Blender, of course. So decimated, and now hit decimate current. Okay, this is enough. And for the next ones I'm going to select this one to see what it is. First, try to delete the lower subdivision and hit pre-process so that we can decimate it. Okay, this one decimated. Okay, this is a good amount, and let's duplicate it and decimate this one down also. Okay, this one is good as well. Let's go for the next one, and this one gets easier because it has lesser amount of polygons. So let's decimate this one as well. Okay, it's all right. Let's go for the next one, and now I'm going to first decimate all of them to a reasonable amount and then do the low poly creation from those. So from now on I'm only going to decimate the high poly ones. Okay, decimate, the number is good, and this one pre-process and decimate. Okay, just some more remaining. Let's zoom on that, and hopefully all of them are 1 million pieces, which is a lot easier to decimate due to the lesser amount of polygons. Okay, decimate, and the next one, this one also needs to be decimated. Okay, and just a couple of more remaining, and then there's the stone kit. Okay, this is the smallest one, and make sure that you have the keep UVs because these have some primitive UVs and we're going to improve the UV inside Blender. So decimate, and now let's go for these stones which are having a lot of polygons. I really didn't expect that. So again, pre-process. Okay, decimate, and this is almost very much for the high poly because this one is a small piece, so I'm going to decimate it again, and this one is alright for the high poly. So let's go for this one and pre-process. Okay, decimate, and this one is also too much even for high poly, so it decimates again, and now I'm going to take the high poly from this. Okay, let's select this ones. These are some connecting pieces. I'm going to do the decimation on these as well. And hopefully this is the last decimation from the high polys. And then we are going to copy these and do the low poly as well. But that is not going to take so much because the poly count is relatively too small. It's going to take just a couple of seconds. Okay, decimate. Okay, this is enough for the high poly. So let's go for the place that we didn't create the high poly for, the low poly for, I mean. we created the high poly for this and the low poly as well, and we want to start from here. Okay, let's duplicate this, and I'm going to pre-process this one and decimate it to make it lower in polygon. Okay, all right, let's take this one, duplicate it, pre-process again, and decimate it. Okay, this one, duplicate it, pre-process, and decimate. Okay, just some more remaining. Let's go to here. We need to duplicate it, pre-process, and decimate. Okay, this has been decimated as well. Let's go for this and this one as well. And now this one, let's duplicate it, pre-process, and decimate. Okay, just a couple of more remaining. I should have first duplicated that. So let's hit pre-process again. And decimate. Okay, the poly count is a good amount, and now duplicate this one again, pre-process, and decimate. And looks like we didn't decimate that, so let's delete this one and continue from this. So duplicate this, pre-process, and done. And just these ones remaining. So let's duplicate this, pre-process, and done. So even this one is so high for this a small piece. So let's again pre-process lower, because I'm thinking about the UV creation, and UV creation on this would be a nightmare. So let's go select this one and duplicate it, pre-process, decimate, pre-process again, and decimate. Okay, it's holding good. And for the last one, let's take these, pre-process and decimate. Of course, we need to go lower, and we can go lower even. Not so low, just go for this one. Okay, now all of the pieces have been done. We have 12 pieces, 12 low poly pieces, and accompanied with 12 high poly pieces, and we have 24 geometry pieces in total. So again, I'm going to export this to Blender to do the baking and things, preparations for substance. Okay, I export this one as well, and in the next lesson we will start to bake these as well. So I'm going to export all of them right here, just convert it to FBX, and let's call this one Beach Kit. And using the same settings, I'm going to export. Okay, these ones are going to be exported, and see you in the next lesson.